The morning sun crept over the horizon, casting golden light across the farm. The air was crisp and smelled of damp earth and fresh hay. She stepped outside, breathing it in, feeling a quiet sense of peace settle over her. The farm had always been her sanctuary, a place where the rhythm of life followed the seasons, and she could find comfort in routines that never seemed to change. She had her husband, who loved the farm in his own way, and her horse, who was more than just an animal to her. He was a companion, a friend, and sometimes, she liked to think, a teacher. She walked down the path toward the stables, the gravel crunching softly beneath her boots. The horse was already there, waiting near the fence, his ears pricked forward, nostrils flaring as he sniffed the morning air. When he saw her, he neighed softly, a sound that made her heart lift in ways that words could never fully describe. She smiled, reaching out to run her hand down his mane, feeling the warmth of his coat beneath her fingers. "Morning, buddy," she said gently. "Ready for a day out in the sun?" The horse nudged her hand, nudged it again as if impatient for her to finish speaking and get to the real business of the morning. She laughed softly, feeling the easy rhythm of their relationship. He wasn't just a horse. He had a personality, a way of understanding her moods and her energy that often surprised her. Sometimes she thought he knew her better than anyone else did. Her husband appeared at the edge of the barnyard, coffee cup in hand, hair slightly mussed from sleep. He waved, and she waved back, a smile touching her lips. He was a kind man, steady and dependable, but sometimes she felt a small pang of frustration. He was predictable, safe, and utterly human in ways that her horse was not. The horse could surprise her, challenge her, and comfort her in ways that her husband, despite his love and devotion, never could. "Morning," he said, his voice warm. "How's my favorite troublemaker?" He nodded toward the horse. "Troublemaker?" she asked with mock indignation. "He's perfectly behaved this morning." Her husband raised an eyebrow. "Perfectly behaved until he isn't," he said, taking a slow sip of his coffee. "You know that horse better than anyone." "I just try to keep up," she chuckled. "You do your best. That's enough." She turned back to the horse, who had begun pawing at the ground slightly, impatient for breakfast. "Let's get you fed first, okay?" The routine was simple. She filled the trough, scattering oats carefully, then added fresh water. The horse's ears flicked as he began to eat, his tail swishing lazily. She watched him, marveling at the simple joy he seemed to find in the morning meal. The rhythm of his movements, the calm way he ate, reminded her that life didn't always need to be complicated. The farm was quiet, peaceful, and yet in that simplicity there was so much richness. She glanced at her husband, who had moved closer to watch her work. "I don't know how you do it," he said. "You seem to understand him in a way I can't." She shrugged, though a small smile tugged at her lips. "It's not that complicated. You just pay attention. Watch how he moves, how he reacts to things. Notice the little signs. He's not trying to be difficult. He's just him." Her husband nodded slowly, taking in her words, though she could see the skepticism flicker in his eyes. Understanding animals had never been his strength. He respected her bond with the horse, even admired it at times, but he never quite shared the depth of connection she felt. She didn't mind. This bond was hers, unique, and something that added a layer of wonder to her everyday life. After breakfast, she led the horse out to the paddock. The morning light warmed her back, and the sound of hooves on soft earth was comforting. She let him graze freely, enjoying the sight of him moving with quiet confidence and strength. He was beautiful, strong, and intelligent, with a sense of awareness that always made her pause in admiration. As she stood watching him, her thoughts drifted to her husband again. He had his strengths, no doubt. He was steady, practical, reliable. But her horse had a way of surprising her that he never did. There were moments when the horse would do something completely unexpected, a small act that revealed intelligence and emotion she hadn't anticipated. It reminded her that life could still hold surprises, even in routines she thought she knew intimately. The morning passed in a gentle rhythm. She cleaned the stalls, swept the barn, and tended to smaller tasks around the farm. Every so often, she would glance at the horse, noticing his alertness, the way he occasionally lifted his head and scanned the surroundings. It was subtle, but there was a sense that he was aware of more than she realized. Sometimes she imagined he could understand her thoughts before she even spoke them. Her husband joined her briefly to help with chores, though he mostly stood back, watching her interact with the horse. I don't get it, he said quietly. How can you tell what he's thinking? She smiled softly. You don't need words, she said. You just have to pay attention. Listen with your eyes and your heart. He communicates in ways we don't always notice. The horse flicked an ear toward her, then slowly lifted his head and trotted a few steps closer. She extended her hand and he nudged it gently. She laughed, shaking her head. See? He wants more attention. Her husband chuckled. I can see that. I'll admit he's smart, she nodded. Smarter than most people I know, she said teasingly, glancing at him. He laughed, though there was a hint of truth in her words that he had to admit even to himself. By midday, the sun had climbed high, and the warmth of the day made the farm feel almost magical. The horse had grown restless, and she decided to take him for a short ride. She led him to the paddock gate, mounted carefully, and began a gentle trot. The wind played through her hair, and the rhythmic sound of hooves against the earth was soothing. Riding him felt different than anything else in her life. It wasn't about control. It was about harmony. She guided him, but he also guided her, responding to subtle cues and movements in a way that was almost conversational. Every so often he would pick up his pace slightly or shift direction unexpectedly, reminding her that he had his own mind and that the relationship was mutual. Her husband watched from a distance, leaning against the fence with a cup of iced tea. He had ridden horses before, but he never experienced the same connection she did. He respected it, though he sometimes felt a pang of jealousy at the depth of the bond she shared with the HOA. The horse's behavior had been a little unusual all morning, but at first she had chalked it up to energy or a change in routine. Sometimes he would act restless, pawing at the ground or tossing his head for no apparent reason, and it was nothing to worry about. But today was different. There was a subtle tension in the way he moved, a nervous energy that made her pause and observe more carefully. She watched him as he grazed, noting how his ears flicked constantly in different directions, how he would lift his head and stare into the distance, then glance back at her as if trying to communicate something she couldn't yet understand. She knelt to adjust his saddle strap, thinking it might be uncomfortable, but he flinched slightly, not from the strap but from the air itself. It was almost as if he sensed something in the environment, something she could not see. Her husband appeared in the yard again, this time carrying tools for a small repair. He seems a bit jumpy today, he said casually, not realizing the undercurrent of unease she was starting to feel. I've noticed, she replied, her tone thoughtful. He's acting different, like he's trying to tell me something. Her husband raised an eyebrow. Horses don't really send messages, you know. Sometimes they get nervous. Probably a squirrel or some bird. She smiled faintly, a mixture of amusement and frustration. Maybe, but it feels like more than that. The horse stamped his hoof and neighed softly, glancing toward the edge of the paddock. She followed his gaze, but there was nothing unusual, just the familiar tree line and the distant hills beyond the farm. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that he had noticed something important. She decided to take him for a walk around the property, hoping movement would calm him and maybe reveal the cause of his restlessness. As she led him along the gravel path, she noticed that he was unusually alert, his head high and ears rotating constantly, picking up every sound, every movement. She kept her voice soft and calm, speaking soothingly to him, trying to ease the tension in his body. You're a smart one, aren't you? She murmured. Always noticing things I don't. The horse flicked his tail, his eyes bright, and he took a few quick steps forward, almost urging her to follow him faster. She laughed softly. All right, I'm coming. As they rounded the corner near the barn, he suddenly stopped, planting his front hooves firmly and tossing his head. His eyes were fixed on a spot near the fence that bordered the edge of the property. She approached cautiously, squinting in the direction he was focused. At first, she saw nothing out of the ordinary, just the familiar landscape she had walked countless times. But then she noticed a small movement, a flicker, almost hidden in the shadows. A tiny animal? Or maybe something else? The horse shifted his weight, pawing the ground, and neighed again, louder this time. His behavior was insistent, commanding her attention, and she realized he wasn't just acting restless. He was trying to lead her somewhere. Her heart began to race, a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. Okay, she said softly, speaking as if he could understand her. Let's see what you're trying to show me. The horse moved forward with purpose, guiding her along a narrow path that led toward the back of the property. She followed, keeping her pace steady but alert. Every step felt charged with anticipation, as if she was on the verge of discovering something significant. Her husband, still working near the barn, called out, "Don't wander too far. You don't know what's out there." She waved at him, trying to reassure him. "I'll be fine. Just following him." The horse stopped again near a cluster of bushes, his body tense, nostrils flaring. He pawed the ground once more and stared directly at her, almost demanding that she look closer. She approached cautiously, parting the branches, and froze. There, partially hidden among the undergrowth, was a small, abandoned crate. It had been left for who knew how long, and something about it caught her attention immediately. She could see that the horse had led her here intentionally. His insistence, the way he had guided her step by step, made it clear that this was not a coincidence. Curiosity mixed with awe as she examined the crate. It wasn't just an ordinary piece of farm equipment. Inside, she discovered a collection of items, some tools, some old letters, and a small, delicate object that seemed out of place in the rough crate. She picked it up, her fingers brushing against it carefully, and felt a shiver of surprise. The horse neighed softly, rubbing his head against her shoulder. It was almost as if he were proud of himself, pleased that she had found what he had been trying to show her. She couldn't help but laugh softly, a mix of amazement and disbelief. "You really did this," she murmured. "You really led me here." Her husband, finally noticing her absence, came running toward them, wiping his hands on a rag. "What's going on? What did you find?" She held up the object carefully, turning to show him. "Look at this. He led me here. He wouldn't stop until I found it." Her husband's eyes widened in surprise. What? The horse led you?" She nodded, still holding the object gently. "Yes, he knew something was here. He wouldn't let me ignore him." Her husband approached, still in disbelief. He looked at the horse, who had settled back, watching calmly but with an unmistakable sense of pride. I can't believe it," he admitted. "I've never seen anything like that." The horse nuzzled her shoulder again, as if confirming that he had indeed accomplished something remarkable. She laughed softly, brushing his mane with one hand while holding the object in the other. "You really do surprise me," she said warmly. "More than anyone else ever could." Her husband shook his head, a mixture of amusement and admiration on his face. "I don't know what to say. That's incredible," she smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. This was more than just a random act. It was a moment of connection, of understanding, and a reminder of why she valued her horse so deeply. He was more than an animal. He was intelligent, perceptive, and capable of surprising her in ways she had never imagined. The crate had held her attention for the better part of the afternoon, but now she was ready to explore its contents more carefully. She knelt on the ground in the barn, moving aside hay and debris, letting her hands trace the objects inside. Each item seemed mundane at first: old tools, weathered cloth, some faded papers, but there was something about the way the horse had guided her that made her examine everything as if it were vital. She picked up a small, wooden box tucked into the corner of the crate. It was worn but sturdy, its latch slightly rusted. She opened it carefully, expecting perhaps some old trinkets, but what she found made her gasp softly. Inside lay a collection of letters and photographs yellowed with age, each one carefully folded and preserved. They seemed to tell a story of a family connected to the land, of lives lived quietly and with love, yet with moments of hardship that had never been spoken aloud. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked up a photograph of a young boy and girl, standing in front of the same barn she now worked in. The resemblance to the farm itself was uncanny, and yet there was a sense of history, a story waiting to be discovered. She could feel the presence of those who had cared for the land before her, their lives somehow echoing in the quiet corners of the farm. The horse shifted beside her, nudging her gently as if urging her to continue. His presence was reassuring, a silent reminder that he had led her here for a reason. She looked down at him, gratitude shining in her eyes. "You knew this was here, didn't you?" she murmured. He neighed softly, flicking his ears, and she laughed lightly. "You're full of surprises, I'll give you that." Her husband had joined her now, curiosity overcoming his earlier skepticism. He crouched beside her, peering into the box. "I can't believe it," he said quietly. This is incredible." "How did he even know?" She shook her head, still holding the photograph. "I don't know, but he wouldn't let me ignore him." He kept guiding me here, insisting that I look closely. I think he sensed something important. Her husband studied the horse with a newfound respect. I always thought of him as smart, but this is something else. He's practically human in his instincts. The horse nuzzled her shoulder again, his eyes bright and intelligent. It was almost as if he understood the admiration directed at him, and felt pride in having completed his task. She smiled, brushing her hand along his mane. "You've done more than I could have ever expected. More than anyone else, even him," she said, glancing at her husband. As she carefully examined the letters, she realized that the crate contained more than just memories. Some of the letters were written in a hurried hand, speaking of struggles with the land, concerns for the family, and hints of something valuable hidden nearby. Her mind raced with possibilities, thinking about the history of the farm and the people who had lived and worked there before her. The horse pawed at the ground again, drawing her attention. She followed his gaze to a small patch of earth near the barn, partially covered with leaves and brush. There was something there, just slightly different from the surrounding soil, a subtle indentation that caught her eye. Her heart began to beat faster. Could it be that the horse had led her not only to the crate but also to something buried? She turned to her husband. "I think he wants me to dig here. I think there's more to find." He looked doubtful but nodded, fetching a small spade from the shed. "All right," he said. "Let's see what he's pointing us toward." The horse watched intently as she knelt and began to dig, carefully moving the soil aside. Her hands worked quickly but gently, uncovering a small wooden chest beneath the earth. She pulled it free, brushing dirt from its surface, and opened it with a mixture of anticipation and awe. Inside were more letters, small trinkets, and a few pieces of jewelry that had clearly been treasured once. Each item seemed to carry a piece of the past, a story waiting to be understood. Her husband's eyes widened. "This is unbelievable." "I can't imagine he knew this was here." She shook her head, smiling at the horse. "He did. He knew exactly where to bring me, and he wouldn't let me ignore it." She looked at the horse, her eyes shining with gratitude and admiration. "You've done more than I could ever expect, more than anyone else ever could." The horse neighed softly, nudging her hand again. She laughed, brushing his mane. "You really do surprise me every day." As they sorted through the items, she realized that the horse had not only led her to physical treasures, but had also guided her to a deeper understanding of the farm, its history, and her connection to it. She could feel the presence of the people who had lived here before, and through the horse, she was able to touch a piece of their lives. Her husband helped her place the items on a clean table inside the barn. He was still in awe, turning the letters and photographs over carefully. "I never thought I'd see something like this," he said. "And he knew all along." She smiled, thinking about how often people underestimated animals, assuming that intelligence and awareness were uniquely human traits. The horse had proven otherwise, demonstrating insight, patience, and a level of understanding that left both of them humbled. The horse, now calm, grazed quietly nearby, but his eyes occasionally flicked toward her as if checking that she was safe and that the discovery was proceeding as intended. She reached out and patted his neck gently. "You're amazing," she said. "You've taught me something today about trust, awareness, and how much animals can understand." Her husband, observing the interaction, nodded slowly. "I see it now. He's not just a horse. He's extraordinary, and so is the bond you share." She looked at him thoughtfully. "It's not about being extraordinary. It's about paying attention, about noticing the little things. That's what makes him so remarkable." The afternoon passed in a haze of discovery. They went through each item carefully, piecing together stories, uncovering letters that revealed personal struggles, small joys, and moments of love from the past. Every discovery was layered with history and emotion, and the horse remained a silent but ever-present guide, watching her with intelligence and pride. By evening, the barn was filled with a quiet reverence, the air heavy with the weight of history and the richness of discovery. She stepped back, taking in the scene, the horse standing calmly, her husband examining the items with awe, and herself in the middle, filled with a deep sense of gratitude. She realized that the horse had done more than guide her to objects of the past. He had taught her to pay attention, to trust her instincts, and to understand that intelligence and awareness were not limited to humans. He had shown her that surprises could come from unexpected places, and that bonds formed through trust and respect could lead to discoveries beyond imagination. Her husband approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I have to admit," he said softly, "I didn't fully understand before, but now I do. He's incredible. And so is your connection with him." She smiled, her eyes meeting the horse's gaze again. "He's always been incredible. I didn't realize how much he could do until today." The next morning, the farm was bathed in the soft glow of sunrise. The air carried the crisp scent of dew-soaked earth and the faint smell of hay. She stepped out of the house, her boots crunching on the gravel path, and immediately felt the familiar sense of peace that came with being surrounded by the animals she loved. The horse was waiting near the paddock, his coat gleaming in the early light, ears twitching as he listened to the quiet sounds of the morning. She approached him with a gentle smile. "Morning," she said softly, running her hand along his neck. He nudged her shoulder in response, a silent acknowledgement of their bond. She could feel it in every movement, in the way he shifted his weight and glanced at her, that their connection had grown even stronger since yesterday. Her husband appeared behind her, still rubbing sleep from his eyes. "You two seem inseparable," he said with a chuckle. "I don't know how you do it," she smiled. "We've got a rhythm, that's all. He's smart, attentive, and surprising." Her husband shook his head, though there was warmth in his expression. "I'll give you that. Yesterday, well, I didn't believe it at first, but now I see it. He really did lead you to something important." She nodded, still thinking about the discovery. "It wasn't just luck. He noticed something, and he wouldn't let me ignore it. That's why I trust him so much. He surprises me more than anyone else ever could." The horse pawed at the ground, his eyes bright and alert, as if eager to begin the day's adventures. She laughed softly. All right. Let's see what today brings." They began with a routine check around the property. She moved methodically, inspecting fences, water troughs, and the vegetable garden while the horse followed closely, occasionally glancing up at her as if offering silent guidance. His attentiveness made her feel both comforted and amazed. It was as if he understood more about the farm, about life itself, than many people she had known. Her husband followed along, helping where he could, though he often paused to watch the interactions between her and the horse. "I think I'm starting to understand," he said at one point. "It's not just that he's smart. It's that he communicates with you in ways I've never seen before. He listens. He notices. And he acts when needed." She smiled, brushing a hand over the horse's mane. "Exactly. That's what makes him so extraordinary. He's not just a pet, he's a partner." As the morning progressed, the horse began acting in ways that hinted at his playful side. He would nudge a tool she was carrying almost teasingly, or gently tug at the corner of a tarp. Each movement was deliberate, almost mischievous, and it reminded her that intelligence and personality could be expressed in countless ways. Her husband laughed. "Okay, now he's officially teasing you. I didn't realize horses could have a sense of humor." She laughed along with him. "Oh, he definitely does. You just have to pay attention to the signs." She leaned down and gave the horse a gentle scratch behind his ears, earning a soft nicker in return. "See? He knows when he's charming me." The rest of the morning was filled with small, quiet lessons. The horse would sometimes stop and stare at something in the distance, drawing her attention to things she might have missed: an uneven fence post, a nest of chicks hidden in the garden, or a loose brick near the barn steps. She realized that his attentiveness extended beyond mere curiosity. He noticed details that mattered, and he trusted her to respond appropriately. By midday, the sun had climbed high in the sky, warming the farm and bringing out the sweet scent of wildflowers along the edges of the fields. She decided to take the horse for a longer ride, hoping to enjoy the open air and the rhythm of movement. She saddled him carefully, noting how calm and patient he was throughout the process. There was a quiet trust between them, a mutual understanding that made each action seamless and natural. As they rode through the fields, the horse occasionally shifted his pace or changed direction slightly, responding to invisible cues she didn't consciously give but that he seemed to understand intuitively. She marveled at his awareness, the way he seemed to anticipate her needs and adjust accordingly. Each movement reminded her that their connection was deeper than she could explain. Her husband watched from the fence line, occasionally calling out greetings as they passed. He was clearly impressed, but he still seemed to be trying to grasp the full extent of what made this bond so remarkable. "I'll never understand it fully," he admitted when she returned, "but I see why you trust him so much." She smiled, patting the horse gently. It's not about understanding everything. It's about respect, attention, and trust. He shows me when something matters and I respond. That's how we work together. The afternoon brought a playful moment that left them all laughing. As she groomed the horse, he suddenly grabbed the edge of a loose blanket with his teeth and tugged it toward himself. She pretended to scold him, though her laughter betrayed her amusement. "You little trickster," she said, shaking her head. The horse tossed his head, flicking the blanket back and forth, clearly enjoying the game. Her husband watched in astonishment. "I didn't think a horse could be so spirited," he said. "He's got personality to spare." She nodded, still smiling. "He does, and he never stops surprising me. That's why I say he's more remarkable than most people." As the day drew on, she began reflecting on the lessons the horse had taught her over the years: patience, attentiveness, trust, and the ability to notice the small details. These were qualities she had come to value deeply, and she realized how much they had shaped her own perspective. The horse had a way of bringing out the best in her, of reminding her to slow down and pay attention to the world around her. Her husband joined her for a late afternoon walk, carrying a small bucket of feed. "I've been thinking," he said thoughtfully, "about what you said yesterday. About noticing details and trusting instincts. I think I'm starting to understand how he's taught you that." She smiled warmly at him. "It's not something you learn overnight. You have to spend time together, pay attention, and respond. He doesn't just act for attention or reward. He acts because he understands." They fed the horse together, laughing as he nudged the bucket eagerly, making sure he got every last bit. His intelligence, attentiveness, and playful nature made each moment a delight, and she realized that the bond they shared was stronger than ever. As evening approached, the farm settled into quiet. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the fields and the barnyard. She led the horse back to the paddock, brushing him carefully and speaking to him softly. "You've done so much today," she said. "You've taught me, surprised me, and reminded me the morning sun rose gently over the farm, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink." There was a calmness in the air, a sense of promise that today would be another ordinary day, yet she knew better. After all the surprises the horse had given her in the past few days, she had learned never to take a moment for granted. She stepped out of the house, boots crunching on the gravel path, and immediately felt the familiar warmth of the farm waking up around her. Birds chirped softly in the trees. The wind rustled through the fields, and the faint smell of fresh hay filled the air. The horse was already waiting at the edge of the paddock, ears forward, eyes bright. The way he stood there, calm yet alert, reminded her once again of the bond they shared. She smiled and ran her hand along his mane. "Good morning, my friend," she said softly. "Ready for another day of surprises?" He nickered softly, leaning into her touch, and she laughed. "I should never underestimate you, should I?" Her husband appeared behind her, holding a mug of coffee. "Morning," he said, his voice full of warmth. "You two seem inseparable again," she smiled. "We're a team. He's smarter than anyone gives him credit for, and I've learned to trust him." Her husband chuckled. "I've seen that now. I'm still amazed at what he did the other day. I didn't know horses could be so aware," she nodded. "Awareness, intuition, patience. He teaches me things every day. Things I didn't even know I needed to learn." The horse pawed at the ground impatiently, clearly eager to start moving. She laughed softly. All right. Let's see what today has in store." They walked together toward the fields, the soft grass brushing against her boots. The horse followed closely, ears flicking constantly, scanning the surroundings. There was a sense of purpose in his movements, a quiet intensity that reminded her of the first time he had led her to the crate. That moment had changed her perspective on him forever. She had always known he was intelligent, but that day had proven just how extraordinary he truly was. Her husband trailed behind, still watching them with curiosity. "Do you ever worry about what he might do next?" he asked. Yesterday was incredible, but I can't imagine what he could surprise you with today." She smiled thoughtfully. "I don't worry. I trust him. That's the difference. He's never done anything without reason. And even if he surprises me, it's always something meaningful." As they reached the edge of the field, the horse suddenly stopped, ears forward, head lifted. He stared toward the far end of the pasture, muscles tense as if he had noticed something important. She froze, her own attention drawn to where he was looking. There was nothing obvious, just the familiar trees and the fence line, but she trusted his instincts. "Something's caught your attention, hasn't it?" she asked softly. He pawed the ground and let out a low, insistent neigh. She nodded, understanding that he wanted her to follow. "All right," she said. "Lead the way." The horse moved forward with purpose, guiding her toward a part of the pasture she rarely visited. The grass grew taller here and the ground was uneven, but he navigated it effortlessly as if he had been there countless times before. She followed closely, feeling a mixture of anticipation and awe. As they reached a small clearing near the edge of the trees, she noticed a movement among the bushes. A faint sound, a distressed whimper, reached her ears. Her heart skipped a beat. She knelt, brushing the grass aside, and gasped softly. A small animal trapped in a tangle of brambles struggled to free itself. It was a young dog, its paw caught, eyes wide with fear. Her husband rushed up behind her. "Oh my goodness," he said. How did he?" She looked at the horse, who had stopped a few feet away, watching calmly but intently. "He must have sensed it," she said softly. "He led me here. He knew something was wrong." Together they worked to free the dog, carefully untangling the branches that had trapped it. The dog whimpered softly but remained still, sensing that they meant no harm. Finally, with one last careful pull, the paw was free. She scooped the dog into her arms, cradling it gently. "You're safe now," she whispered. The dog licked her cheek in gratitude, tail wagging cautiously. Her husband looked at the horse with wide eyes. "I can't believe it," he said. "He saved that dog. He knew it was in trouble." She nodded, tears of awe and gratitude filling her eyes. "He's always been aware, always watching, always thinking. He just acts when it matters most." She looked down at the horse, who flicked his ears and nuzzled her shoulder gently. "You really do surprise me more than anyone else ever could," she murmured. The horse's calm presence in the clearing was remarkable. He hadn't panicked, hadn't rushed, but had led her directly to where help was needed. It was a clear reminder of his intelligence, awareness, and intuition. She felt a deep gratitude not only for the horse's action but for the bond they shared, which allowed her to trust him completely. Her husband knelt beside her, gently patting the dog. "I'm in awe," he said. "I've seen smart animals before, but this is something else entirely. He's extraordinary." She smiled, brushing her hand along the horse's mane. "He's not extraordinary because he's flashy or trained to do tricks. He's extraordinary because he notices what matters and he acts on it. That's something humans often forget to do." The horse nudged her shoulder again, soft and reassuring. She laughed softly. Yes, I know. You've done it again. You've shown us what matters today." They decided to take the dog back to the barn, making sure it was safe and comfortable. Along the way, she reflected on the lessons the horse had taught her over time. Patience, observation, attentiveness, and the quiet understanding that sometimes the smallest actions could have the greatest impact. The horse had not only guided her to discoveries in the past days, but he had also saved a life. Back at the barn, they set up a small space for the dog, giving it water, food, and a warm corner to rest. The horse watched closely, ears swiveling as if making sure everything was in order. She turned to her husband. "He's remarkable, isn't he?" she said softly. Her husband nodded, still in awe. "Remarkable doesn't even begin to cover it. I can't believe how aware he is, how much he notices. And you understand him." "That's amazing," she smiled, her heart full. "It's not about me. It's about paying attention and trusting him. He's shown me what it means to notice, to act, and to care." The horse lowered his head, brushing against her shoulder in what felt like a quiet acknowledgement of his work. She laughed softly. "Yes, I know. You've done more than I could have imagined, more than anyone else ever could." The afternoon passed quietly. They took turns caring for the dog, watching as it slowly relaxed, realizing it was safe. The horse remained calm and patient, never leaving her side, as if proud of what they had accomplished together. She realized once again that the bond they shared was unique, built on trust, respect, and understanding. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple, she led the horse to the paddock for the evening. She brushed him carefully, speaking to him softly, her words filled with admiration and gratitude. "You've taught me so much," she said. "You've shown me that intelligence and awareness aren't limited to humans. You've guided me, surprised me, and reminded me of what truly matters. I can't imagine life without you." He nuzzled her gently, his dark eyes shining with warmth and intelligence. She laughed softly. I think you understand exactly what I mean. Her husband joined them, watching the interaction with a sense of humility and awe. I see it now, he said quietly. You've got a connection with him that's rare, and he's more remarkable than I ever imagined. He saved a life today, and he's guided you in ways that are beyond comprehension. She nodded, still holding the horse's mane. He's always been this way. I just didn't realize how much until today. He surprises me every day, teaches me every day, and reminds me that life is full of wonder if you pay attention. As twilight settled over the farm, they watched the horse stand quietly in the paddock, calm yet aware, as if surveying the land he loved and protecting it in his own quiet way. She realized that life with him would always be filled with surprises, lessons, and moments of awe. He had proven time and again that his intelligence, intuition, and loyalty could surpass any expectation, including those of humans. That night, as they closed the barn and headed inside, she looked back at the horse one last time. Good night, my friend, she whispered softly. Thank you for today and for every day you've shown me what's possible. He neighed softly in response, the sound carrying across the quiet farm. She smiled, feeling a profound sense of gratitude, wonder, and love. In the end, it wasn't just about the discoveries or the lessons. It was about the bond they shared. A bond built on trust, respect, and the quiet intelligence of a remarkable horse who could surprise her more than anyone ever could. And as the stars appeared one by one in the night sky, she knew with certainty that life on this farm, shared with such an extraordinary companion, would always be richer, fuller, and more meaningful than she had ever imagined. Why I love having you around. You really are one of a kind. He nuzzled her shoulder gently as if acknowledging her words. She laughed softly. I think you understand exactly what I mean. Her husband watched, a mixture of admiration and humility in his expression. I can see it now. The connection you share, it's rare. He's more than just a horse. He's a partner, a guide, and a friend in ways I never could have imagined. She nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. The horse had not only surprised her physically, leading her to discoveries and guiding her attention, but he had also shaped her emotionally, teaching her lessons about patience, awareness, and trust. As they stepped inside the house, the cool evening air settling around them, she reflected on the day. It had been filled with laughter, lessons, and quiet moments of amazement. The horse had reminded her once again that life was full of surprises, that attentiveness and care could reveal wonders that might otherwise go unnoticed, and that sometimes the bonds we form with animals could teach us more than we expected from people. Her husband, still amazed, followed her into the kitchen. I have to admit, he said softly, I didn't believe it at first. But now I understand. He's remarkable. And so are you for seeing it. She smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. It's not about me. It's about paying attention and appreciating what's right in front of you. He shows me that every day. The horse, now settled in the paddock for the night, flicked his ears toward them one last time. It was as if he knew the day had ended perfectly, and that his role as guide, teacher, and companion had been fulfilled. She watched him for a moment, feeling a profound sense of admiration and love. Good night, my friend, she whispered softly. Thank you for being you. And as the farm grew quiet under the blanket of twilight, she knew that tomorrow would bring more surprises, more lessons, and more moments that would remind her why life with this extraordinary horse was richer, more meaningful, and more full of wonder than she had ever imagined. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the barn. The horse shifted slightly, lowering his head as if acknowledging the end of the day's work. She stepped forward and gave him a gentle hug, feeling the warmth and strength of his body. Thank you, she whispered, for everything today, for guiding me, for surprising me, for showing me what's possible. He neighed softly in response, his breath warm against her cheek. She laughed lightly, a sound filled with wonder and joy. You really do more than anyone else could, she said. Her husband watched, still in awe. I see it now. You've got a gift with him, a connection that's rare, and he